Welcome to English Story Collection. Ruth worked in a small post office in a harbor town for 31 years. 2 windows, and one of them always closed. There were never enough people for 2. The scales were wrong by 5 grams. Nobody was ever going to come and fix them, so Ruth simply took those 5 grams off in her head. Every time. For 31 years. Not one person in that town ever paid a penny too much for a parcel. The clock above the door ran 2 minutes fast, and she left it that way on purpose. The last collection was at 5. Better that somebody arrives 2 minutes early than 1 minute late. That was what order meant to her. Not that everything works. That nobody gets hurt by the thing that does not work, because in a post office, everything that gets lost is somebody's life in an envelope. Picture a woman that a whole town knows by her hands better than by her face. Hands in a small window. They take the parcel. They put it on the scales. They bring the stamp down. Thunk. Next, please. She lived alone at number 13 Harbour Road. The last house on the street, where the road stops at a low stone wall. And behind the wall, there is the sea. And here is what you need to know about Ruth before the story starts. In 31 years, she never broke a single rule of the post. Not once. Until one Tuesday in October. That Tuesday, she was sorting the morning post. It is simple work, and the hands do it on their own. Local goes left. Passing through goes right. Problems go in the middle, and there are never many. And then she was holding a plain white envelope. Blue ink. Very careful handwriting, leaning a little to the right, the kind that almost nobody has anymore. No return address, and the address was this: 14 Harbour Road. Ruth looked at it for longer than she needed to. Here is the thing. She had walked down that street twice a day for 31 years. Harbour Road is short. It goes down towards the water, and it stops. 11, 12, 13, then a low wall, then rocks, then the sea. There is no number 14 on Harbour Road. There never had been, not in all the years she could remember. She put the envelope in the middle pile and carried on sorting. She told herself it was a mistake, and that mistakes get sorted out by lunchtime. At first, she did everything properly. She checked the address register. There was no number 14. She checked the old map on the wall, the one with the yellow edges. It was not there either. She asked the postman who had walked that area for 20 years. He laughed and said people mix up Harbour Road with Harbour Lane all the time, and that this was probably it. But there was no number 14 in Harbour Lane. And so Ruth did something she had never done for one envelope. She took her umbrella at lunchtime and walked down the street slowly, counting the numbers out loud, the way a child counts. 11, 12, 13, her own door, the wall, the rocks, the sea. She stood there for about 5 minutes. The rain was coming in sideways, the way it always does near water. Then she went back to work, and the envelope sat in the middle of her desk all day. At 4 o'clock, a man came in to post a birthday card, and she stamped it, and she was still thinking about that wall. The rule is simple, and Ruth knew it by heart, because she knew all of them by heart. A letter that cannot be delivered waits at the office for 3 months. If nobody comes for it, it goes to the dead letter office. There they open the envelope and look inside for any sign of who sent it. If there is no sign, the letter is destroyed. It is a normal rule. It is a sensible rule. You cannot keep other people's letters forever. But that evening, Ruth sat with the envelope in her hands and thought about one word: destroyed. Somebody wrote this by hand. Somebody sealed it, put a stamp on it, went out of the house and dropped it into a box. Somebody did everything a person can possibly do to make their words arrive somewhere. She told herself she would just wait a bit longer than 3 months. Maybe somebody got the number wrong. Maybe somebody would come in and ask. She pulled open the bottom drawer of her desk, put the envelope inside, and closed it. Just this one. That is what she said to herself. The next one came a month later, the first Monday in November. The same white envelope, the same blue ink, the same lean to the right, 14 Harbour Road. Ruth looked at it, then at the bottom drawer, then at it again. This time, she did not say anything to herself at all. She simply opened the drawer. Then December, then January. Always the first Monday of the month, never later, sometimes a day early if the Monday was a bank holiday. The postmarks, though, were all different. That was the part that surprised her most. 1 month, a town 150 miles away. The next month, the other end of the country. Then closer again. Whoever this was, they were traveling all the time, or moving all the time, or, Ruth sometimes thought, running from something all the time and never staying anywhere for long. The drawer filled up slowly, the way a bucket fills when you leave it outside in the rain. And now the important part, because without it the story does not work. Ruth never opened a single one of them. Not because it is against the rules, although it is against the rules, and you can lose your job for it. And not because she was such a good person. She never opened them because quite quickly she started thinking about it differently. These letters were not hers. She was not the person they were written to. She was the place where they were waiting, and a place does not read. Her friend, the only person she ever told, said, "Look, you could just have a look. You would find out who it is. You would find the person. You would give them everything, and that would be the end of it." And that sounded reasonable. Ruth thought about it many times, but every time she came back to the same thing. If she opened one envelope, she would stop being the post office and start being a curious woman reading somebody else's letters. So she did not open them. She did not read them, but she did look at them. Sometimes in the evening, after the office was closed, she took the drawer out and laid the envelopes on the desk in date order, in neat rows. And over time she learned to read something else. Not the words, the hand. There were months when the lines were straight, and the address sat exactly in the middle of the envelope, and the stamp was on perfectly, square to the corner. There were other months, letters bigger than they should be, the lean wandering, the stamp on crooked. And one March, the handwriting was so bad that the address could only be read because Ruth knew it by heart. The letters ran downhill. In the word harbor, every single one was shaking. That evening she sat with that envelope for a long time. For the first time in all those years, she really wanted to open it. Not out of curiosity, because somebody on the other side was not all right, and she wanted to do something about it. She put it back. We will come back to that March. A year went by, then 3, then 8. A lot happened in those years, the way it always does. Ruth's mother died. She was ill for a long time. One spring was very bad, and then there were 2 more years, and Ruth went to see her every Saturday on the bus. They wanted to close the post office. The town collected signatures and wrote to the head office in London, and the office stayed open, but they refurbished it. The furniture was replaced, and Ruth's desk was moved over to the window. She carried the drawer across herself, with her own hands, in 2 trips, and she did not let the workmen touch it. They probably decided it was full of documents. In the 6th year, the envelope stopped fitting, and she bought a cardboard box with a lid. 96 envelopes. She never counted them on purpose, and she never kept a list. She simply knew the number, the way you know your own height. And somewhere in the 7th year, she caught herself waiting for the first Monday of the month. Not dreading it, waiting for it. And then came a Tuesday in October, exactly 8 years later, and a woman joined the queue. About 60, a gray coat, wet on the shoulders. And here is what Ruth noticed straight away, because noticing that is her job. The woman had nothing in her hands. No parcel, no letter, no slip of paper. People do not come into a post office like that. The queue moved slowly. The woman did not take out a phone and did not shift from foot to foot. She just stood there and looked at the window. When it was her turn, she put her bag down on the floor, as if she was expecting to stand there a long time, and she said, very quietly, "Excuse me, do you have any letters for number 14? A post office has its own sound. The scales, the stamp, somebody talking, a child crying somewhere." Ruth could not hear any of it anymore. She put the stamp down on the desk. Then she put her hands down on the desk too, because they had started shaking, and she did not like that. "I do," she said. Ruth closed the window in the middle of the working day. In 31 years, for the first time. She took the woman through to the room at the back, where there was a table and a kettle, and where it smelled of paper and wet coat. The woman's name was Grace. She was born in the house at number 14 Harbour Road, the last house by the water, a yellow door that had to be painted again every spring, because the salt ate the paint in a single season. The house had been gone for a long time. It was taken down when they widened the road to the port. There is a low stone wall there now, the same wall Ruth had walked to in the rain on the first day. Grace lived there with her sister. Her sister's name was Kate, 4 years older. Kate died at 29, in March. Grace left the town that same week and did not come back for 30 years. "Who lives at number 13 now?" she asked. "I do," said Ruth. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "So you sleep where our garden was?" Ruth brought out the box and the drawer and put them on the table. Grace looked at them for a long time and did not touch them. Then she did something Ruth was not expecting. She did not start opening them. She started counting them, one envelope after another, moving them from left to right, her lips going, no sound, the way people count money or days. 96. She squared the pile off and straightened the edges. 96, she said. "That is right." And then she looked up and asked, "You never opened one, did you?" "Not one," said Ruth. She wanted to explain that there was only one situation in which she was allowed to open them, and that she had never used it, that it was not some great act, that she had just never been able to. She did not finish the sentence. Grace put up her hand. "I am not asking whether you were allowed," she said. "I am telling you that I know." And this is where the story turns. "For the first 2 years I really was writing to Kate," Grace said. "I knew the house was not there. I am not mad. I thought the letters simply disappeared somewhere inside the system. And that was enough for me. Once a month I needed to tell her something and put it in a box. Where it went after that was not my business. And then I did the arithmetic." And she explained Ruth's own job to her, calmly, the way you explain the way to a child. A letter that cannot be delivered comes back to the sender. Or a notice comes. Something comes back. That is how the post works, everywhere in the world. Nothing ever came back to Grace. Not once. Not in the first year, and not in the second. So I understood 2 things. 1, they are not disappearing. 2, if they are not disappearing and they are not coming back, then once a month somebody is making a decision not to throw them away. She looked at Ruth. "From the 3rd year, I was writing to you." Ruth could not say anything at all. Grace asked her to open one envelope. Not the first and not the last. The one from May in the 6th year. She knew it the way you know a date, not the way you know a text. There was a paper knife on the table, but Ruth opened it with her finger, slowly, and for some reason she felt ashamed. Inside there was one sheet of paper. There was not one single word about Kate. There was the weather in the bay, and the fact that in autumn the wind always comes from the same side. There was a heron the writer had seen on a road outside Norwich, standing there with the look of somebody who is late for work and has already accepted it. And right at the end, on its own line, one sentence: "I hope your mother is better." Ruth sat down because there was nothing else she could do. Her mother had been at her worst that exact spring. "I could not have known that," Grace said quietly. "I was writing blind. Once a month I wished a stranger well. It turns out that sometimes you hit." That evening Ruth stayed at the office after closing and read all of them in date order, from the first to the last. The first 2 years are hard to read. It is grief with nothing dressed up and no beautiful words. A woman telling her dead sister that she bought bread and that she is not sleeping. And then, somewhere in the 3rd year, the letters turn outwards. Questions start. How are you? Is it busy before Christmas? Is it cold by that window? Jokes start. Advice starts. Advice for a person the writer knows exactly one thing about: that this person does not throw something away. And every March the handwriting breaks, and the letter gets short, 3 lines long. Now Ruth knew why. For 8 years one woman wrote into the dark. For 8 years another woman kept it in the dark, and neither of them knew that the other one existed. So here is what I would like you to take from this. You never know who is counting your quiet decisions, but somebody is counting them. They write to each other properly now, and there is a return address on the envelopes. And still, on the first Monday of every month, a white envelope arrives at the post office. Blue ink, leaning to the right. Only now it says 13 Harbour Road. And Ruth does not put it in the drawer anymore. She takes it home.